21. The first thing I heard was a loud voice. No! The cheerleaders stopped cheering, everyone stopped walking and talking, and we all turned to see Baxter, who had just come out of the school. Mr. Klondike, the vice principal, was standing next to him with his hand on Baxter's shoulder. Baxter was crying. Irwin, Daisy, and I all sprinted over. Are you okay? What's wrong? Baxter, what is it? But he stared at the ground and wouldn't look up at us. Finally, after a few seconds, Mr. Klondike cleared his throat. Can I tell them, young man? Baxter nodded. As I'm sure you know, Baxter has a brother, Bennett, who is heroically serving in our armed forces, said Mr. Klondike. This afternoon, Baxter's mother received word that Bennett was injured when the helicopter he was riding in had to make a crash landing. A hard knot formed in my stomach and tears sprang to my eyes. I looked at Irwin and Daisy and I could tell they were feeling the exact same thing. Is he going to be okay? I managed to ask. Mr. Klondike glanced at Baxter, then back at us. We certainly hope so. Bennett has been evacuated to a hospital where he will receive the very best care. Baxter suddenly looked up. My brother is the strongest person I know, he said, his voice sounding raspy. He will be okay. I know he will be okay. We're here for you, Bax, Daisy said, and she wrapped him up in a big hug. Irwin and I stood there, trying to figure out what to do. Finally, desperate for something to say, I blurted out. Do you still want to come to the comics convention with us? I really hope you do, but if you don't, we will definitely bring you back something awesome. Daisy glared at me like I just asked Baxter if he wanted to see the inside of my eyelids, but Baxter nodded. No, I still want to come. I have to ask my mom, but I think she'll say yes. It would be good to have a fun day in New York City. I grinned. Cool. Then I looked at Daisy like, see? Mr. Klondike pointed out toward the parking lot. Your mother is here, Baxter. Mrs. Bradford was getting out of her car and walking toward us, and Mrs. Craig was with her. Mrs. Craig was Baxter's dad's sister, which I sometimes forgot, since she'd become such an important part of our family too, as my after-school babysitter. The two women reached Baxter, and it was clear they'd been crying too. We're all praying for your son, Mrs. Bradford, said Mr. Klondike. The rest of us nodded, but didn't say anything. I quickly squeezed Mrs. Craig's hand, though. She squeezed mine back. Mrs. Bradford tried to smile at us kids, then put her arm around her son's shoulder as they headed back to their car. Mr. Klondike nodded at us before he went back inside. That left Daisy, Irwin, and me all standing there. We looked at each other. I don't know about you, Daisy said to Irwin, but I don't feel much like cheerleading right now. Me neither, Irwin said. The three of us slowly walked home. No one said a single word the whole way.